Chair Hutchinson, I believe member Doug Hutchinson is just joining us now.
Thank you, Clerk Sherbeck. Yeah, I see. Yep. Okay. I have all members here. What do I have? I'm showing 1 o'clock here now. Is that matching up there?
It is, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Deputy Mayor Tom Hutchinson and Chair of the Adjustment Meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Item number 1, and this is November the 1st, 2021 Committee of Adjustment meeting. And we do have quorum as indicated with the committee members login. For this meeting, we're using both audio and video. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the West Grey website at www.westgrey.com. The technology for this meeting is being managed by the West Grey staff. Please refrain from clicking buttons throughout the meeting unless prompted. And before we continue, I'm asking, and I do not see Supervisor Hewlett, who will be explaining on the overview. Clerk Sharbeck, if you could tell me that part there, please, or will you be taking care of that?
I can proceed with that. Thank you, Chair Hutchinson. Before I begin, I'll just note that if you get disconnected, you can dial 1-647-558-0588 and enter meeting ID 891-9652-3908. It should be noted for members of the public that this meeting is being held in 2 locations, on Zoom, as well as being live streamed on YouTube. Public participation and comments are not monitored through the live stream on YouTube, and it must be done through the Zoom meeting software. Both members of staff and council have been briefed on the various features of the Zoom meeting software. Members of council and staff will be raising their hands physically on camera to speak. For members of the public, if you require any technical assistance at any point during this meeting, you can send a chat message to me, Genevieve Sharbach, and I will attempt to assist you. It should be noted that for the public participation parts of the meeting, it will be done through the Zoom meeting software, not the live stream on YouTube. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Clerk Sharbeck. That takes us to item number 2, and that is the purpose of the meeting. Again, back to Clerk Sharbeck, if you could please provide your comment.
Thank you, Chair Hutchinson. The purpose of this Committee of Adjustment meeting is to allow the presentation of applications for minor variances and applications for consents to sever, and to allow interested members of the public the opportunity to ask questions or offer comments with regard to the applications. A public registry for each application is available by email to gsharbach@westgrey.com. If any member of the public would like to be notified in writing of the decision on any of the applications, they're to provide their name and mailing address on the corresponding registry. This will also entitle one to be advised of a possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing in the event the decision on the application is appealed.
Thank you. Item number 3 on our agenda today is disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Members of the committee, if there's any, do you have anything to declare at this time? And if not, if one should arise during the meeting, we can certainly address it at that time as well. So I do not see any members' hands up, so we will move along to item number 4 on our agenda, and that's the approval of the minutes. Item 4.1 is the minutes from September the 13th, 2021, Committee of Adjustments meeting. And if I could get Clerk Sharbeck to please read the recommendation.
Through you, Chair, the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment approves the minutes of September 13th, 2021 as circulated.
Thank you. Could I get a mover, please? I see Member Hutchinson. Will you be moving that, Member Hutchinson?
That's affirmative.
Thank you. And I do see Member Townsend's hand up was next. And will you be seconding that, Member Townsend?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from the committee members on the minutes? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor, if you just raise your hand. Member Townsend, I'm just looking for all members to call the motion. Okay, thank you. I see 5 members of the committee are in favor of it, none opposed. This motion is carried. It takes us to the item number 5, and that is consent to sever number B18-2021, Maria Mikhaichuk and Cuesta Planning Consultants, Inc., Agent 313807, Highway 6, Lot 21, Concession 1, Township of Glenelg. 5.1, application number B18-2021, Maria Mikhaichuk and Cuesta Planning Consultants, Inc., Agent. 5.2 will be Planner Spencer's report. And if I could get Planner Spencer to please read the recommendation in her report, and if you could include in that the written comments received under 5.3, and that would be including 5.3.1, 5.3.2, and 5.3.3. Planner Spencer, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is that committee receive my report and approve application B18-2021 Mikhaichuk, subject to the following conditions: the payment of any outstanding municipal taxes, payment of the zoning bylaw amendment application fee, passage of the zoning bylaw amendment, and finally, the payment of a parkland dedication fee for the newly created parcel. The purpose and effect of this application is to sever approximately 14 acres, 5.7 hectares of rural and hazard lands for the purposes of lot creation, and to retain approximately 133 acres, 53.9 hectares of rural and hazard lands, the effect of which will create a new lot with access along Concession 2. Concession 2 is presently an unopened and unmaintained road allowance. The applicant will be responsible for upgrading the road to provide access to the newly created parcel at their sole expense and to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Infrastructure. Access will be required as a condition of consent. Comments were provided from the County of Grey and the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority. In addition, comments were also provided from the public with respect to Ms. Elizabeth Hines. In summary, concerns over the maintenance of the roadway and to address some issues with respect to osprey nesting in the tower that is located along Concession 2. There was also comments provided by Hydro One, in addition to Enbridge. None of those comments have glaring concerns that staff is concerned with at this point in time. And we'll note that the road upgrades required for access along Concession 2 will be addressed as part of the zoning bylaw amendment process as well. I'm happy to provide clarification as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Spencer. That takes us to 5.4, verbal comments. There's 2 parts to this portion of the meeting. The first one will be for the committee members to speak before we turn it to the public. So under 5.4.1 is committee members. And again, committee members, this is your opportunity to speak, your opportunity, I guess, to speak or ask any questions or comments on this application. So is there any questions from the committee members at this time? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move it over to 5.4.2, and this is the public comments. There's 2 parts to this portion of the public meeting. First one would be to speak in favor of the application, and then that would be followed by anybody that would like to speak opposed or is against the application. I'm going to ask Clerk Sharbeck to please provide an overview on how members of the public can participate, and if you could also advise if we have any members of the public that are wishing to speak, or if you've received any correspondence. Clerk Sharbeck, please.
Thank you, Chair. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of 2 ways. The first being, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and that will let us know that you would like to speak. After speaking, or if you raised your hand in error, you can press *9 again to lower your hand. If you've joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can either send a chat to me, Genevieve, either stating that you would like to speak or that you would like your message read on your behalf for the record. Or you can raise your hand, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon. I'm just checking here. Chair Hutchinson, I see one hand raised. Ryan Kochuta, I think. Sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, Ryan.
Close enough. It's Kachuta, but you got me pretty good. Hi, my name is Ryan. I'm here on behalf of Marima Halchuk. I'm the agent. I'm from Questa Planning. I don't really have much to add. I really came here to say that I'm here to help answer any questions. We do concur with the staff report that was rendered by Lorelei. So at this time, I don't really have much to add, but if the members of the committee do have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cuchetta. I just received a text message that member Townsend's screen had frozen. He did have a couple questions, so I'm just gonna. Is there any questions for Ryan's report first before I go back to member Townsend? Member Hutchinson, do you have a question? And then I'll come back to you, member Townsend.
Yeah, just a question about the road. How many meters of road do you figure you have to clear on the unopened road allowance? Like it's fairly dense there right now.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. So the actual frontage of the lot would be ideal. However, it will be where there is safe access that can be attributed to the newly created lot. And that will be in discussions with the, obviously with the Director of Public Infrastructure, that we can ensure that there's sufficient area and that also we can deal with snow storage and turnaround for maintenance purposes going forward.
Okay, so it's still in the works. Okay, thank you.
Anything further, member Hutchinson?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your hand's still up. And I will go to member Townsend now. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate the accommodation since I was having technical problems at this end. My first question has to do with the planner's report that notes two different sizes are mentioned of the lots. First, the original was 100 acres, and the second one was that it was 143. So, or sorry, 147. So I'm wondering, does it matter what the absolute original when you're dealing with number of severances, or is it the current size of the lot? And I wonder if I could get an answer to that one first, please.
Planner Spencer.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. The County of Grey official plan bases the ability for severances to be permitted based on the original Crown survey on the property, not your current land holding. So for clarification purposes, this severed parcel in this particular circumstance will be 5.7 hectares. And again, the retained parcel will be 53.9 hectares. So I apologize for the confusion. But again, it's based on the original Crown survey. In this particular case, because it is zoned, designated as a rural property with some hazard lands, there is the ability for the density in this case to be satisfied through the official plan.
Super, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you had a second question as well, member Townsend?
I do. It also has to do with the unmaintained road allowance. And I guess similar to Councillor Hutchinson, or Member Hutchinson, about the location, I was also concerned about the impact on others on that road. And sort of to what level would it have to be maintained? Does it have to be paved, chipped and tarred? And I'm assuming that the municipality will then maintain it going forward, so it will add additional cost, and hence my interest on exactly what that involves.
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. So ultimately, the decision with respect to the frontage of that newly created parcel and the maintenance of the roadway will be at the discretion of the director. At this point in time, provided we can deal with snow storage and provide adequate access for not only this newly created parcel, but other parcels that are existing on the unopened and unmaintained portion of the roadway, provided there's no safety issues, the determination of that exact width, depth, and quality of that road and how that's going to be maintained will be with the director directly. Thank you.
And the impact on the other people on the road, like I'm assuming they're doing their own snow removal and things of that nature at this point. Is that true?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So the impact will be that is an unopened and unmaintained road allowance, so that roadway, that 20-meter width, is there currently legally as per even though it's maybe not utilized to the full extent of that 20-meter right of way, certainly any disruption or upgrades to that roadway will be maintained within that 20-meter width, and any improvements made to the road will be contained within that unopened road allowance. So any impact on adjacent landowners would only be of a benefit to improve the roadway for maintenance purposes, et cetera, going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Is that complete your questions then, Member Townsend?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just so you know, your hand's still up. Is there any other comments or questions? Well, I guess we'll go back to the public portion now that we've cleaned that up. So is there anyone that would like to speak in favor or is opposed or against this application? And Clerk Scharbeck, I don't see anything on my screen. I was wondering if you could just double check that from your end, please.
I'm just checking the chat function, and actually, Chair, I see one hand up. Vicky LaPlante.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. LaPlante. I see your hand just came up as well. If you
Yes.
could just, if you don't mind, Ms. LaPlante, if you could just state your name for the record, we appreciate it. Thank you.
LaPlante and my husband, John Paul LaPlante. We live at the bottom of the road off of Highway 6, so we're not adjacently connected to this new lot that's being severed, but our concern was the access to that road allowance. Like, it goes from the entrance at the top of the hill and goes through to an open field into the snowmobile trail, and it's connected that way. So is that going to be closed off to other people, or do we still have access to that road allowance?
Planner Spencer.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. It is a road allowance, so it is a public road. At this point in time, there's no intent for the road to be closed and or sold to this particular individual or any individual along that roadway. It is a public property at this point in time. It's just upgrades to the road that will be made to improve the ability for that road to be used for access purposes.
Any follow-up, Ms. LaPlante?
Yeah, my husband, just to keeping it clear for people, he's actually been clearing it, maintaining that road allowance and cutting the brush, and he flattens down the snow. So he's actually been maintaining it for people. But we were told, and we were under the understanding that we've had comments made that we wouldn't be allowed on there because the applicant owns part of his property is on that road allowance. So we're just kind of concerned about his actions to stop anybody from going on that road allowance. That's what we've sort of been under the understanding.
Okay, I'll go back to Planner Spencer for clarity on that. Planner Spencer.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, that is a municipally unopened and unmaintained roadway. It is not part of the ownership of this particular landowner.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I apologize. Vicky LaPlante, you still have your hand up. Is there anything further?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you. Sorry, I'll take my.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Clerk Scharbeck, any other comments or questions from the public members?
I'm checking the chat function here, Chair Hutchinson, and just going over the list of attendees. I don't see any other hands up at this time. And there's nothing in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will move on to 5.5, and that's the decision by the committee. And what direction would the committee like to take with this application? And I have Member Hutchinson, go ahead. And I do acknowledge Member Hergert. So Member Hutchinson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so the committee adjusted. I would like to approve consent to sever application B18 2021, and I'll let the clerk finish the wording on that, but basically to approve the application.
Thank you. And over to you, Member Hergert.
Yes, I will second that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Clerk Sarbeck, I'm not sure if you caught all that, but if you could read the recommendation before us, please.
Sure, Chair. Moved by Member Doug Hutchinson and seconded by Member Hergert. That Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve consent to sever application number B18-2021 for the reasons set out in the planner's report and subject to the conditions set out in the planner's report.
Thank you, Clerk Sarbeck. Comments or questions on the recommendation before us? Seeing none. Member Robinson, go ahead, please.
I wonder if there could also be receipt of the report. I noted that at the beginning of the agenda. I'm wondering if that could be folded in or if we need a separate motion for that.
Clerk Sarbeck.
I wonder if we could just keep the decision on its own and we'll do a separate resolution to receive the report if that's the committee's wish.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have the recommendation before us. It's been moved by Member Hutchinson, seconded by Member Hergert. And is there any comments or other comments or questions on that recommendation? So we'll call the vote. All members in favor of that, if you could just raise your hand. And I do see 5 members in favor, none opposed. That motion has carried. Now, Member Robinson, did you have something you wanted to add here?
Yes, I'd like to move that the Committee of Adjustment receives report for application B18.2021 Maria Malachuk and Questa Planning Consultants Inc. agent for Planner Spencer's report.
Could I get a seconder for that? I see Member Townsend's hand up. Are you seconding that? Member
Yes,
Townsend?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, I do see a hand came up right in the middle of this, but we do have a motion on the floor, so I do need to ask Clerk Sarbeck how we would, if we should entertain this hand that I just seen, or please give me some direction on that.
Sure, through you, Chair. With the motion on the floor moved and seconded, it's important for the committee to address that motion, and we can certainly come back to, I believe it's Betty Hines has her hand raised, and hear comments after the vote.
Thank you for that clarity. And I just so is everyone aware or know what we have on the floor, the recommendation? And okay, just a quick head nod. All right, so call that that motion there. All members in favor, if you could raise your hand. I do see 5 members in favor of that motion. That motion is carried. And now we will go over to Ms. Hines. If you have something to add, if you could state your name, well, if you could unmute and then just state your name for the record, please. Betty Hines, did you have something you wanted to add here now? I see a green check mark now. Maybe Clerk Sarbeck, you can help maybe unmuting.
Sorry, I guess I was still muted. There's still the question of the osprey nest that I want you to consider because it's protected, in the regulations, and I think that has to be taken into account. And then I had the same concerns about the road allowance, that we wanted to be sure that we would still have that access.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to Planner Spencer. I'm not on the nest. The road, I think we have that detail how that's going to handle. So, anything to add on this one here, Planner Spencer?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I would recommend at this point in time, if alterations of any kind seem to be within the vicinity of the tower, then we'll obviously need to get approval from Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority or the Species at Risk Assessment process, which is something that's separate and outside of the consent application before us today, but will be completed if necessary as part of the road construction and improvements.
Any further questions, Ms. Hines?
to say thank you, I guess. That's all.
Betty Hines, do you have any other questions?
No, I think Vicky's comments pretty well covered it.
Okay. You still have your check mark up, so I just want to make sure with you before we move on. Okay. All right, I am going to be moving on now to the next item on this, and that will be the 5.6, which is next steps. And Clerk Sharback, could you please provide that information?
Thank you. Through you, Chair Hutchinson. The next steps for this application, staff will notify the applicant of the decision. There is a 20-day appeal period that will commence, and provided no appeals are received, the applicant will be notified of that as well. They have 12 months from the date of this decision to satisfy all conditions, provide draft deeds, and a survey for approval by the municipality. And that's it.
Thank you, Clerk Sharback. Okay, so that moves on. We move on to item number 6 on our agenda now, and that's the consent to sever number B26 2021 Howard Weaver and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent 238 Forler Street and 110 William Street, lot 2-3, part lots 4 and 5, concession 13, RP 17R 1861, PT 3 17R 1008, PT 1 and 16R 6065, Pat 1, I think that's part 1, Village of Newstead. 6.1, application number B26 2021, Howard Weaver and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent. 6.2, this is Planner Spencer's report. Planner Spencer, if you could please read your recommendation. If you could include 6.3 written comments received, which will be included in 6.3.1 and 6.3.2. Planner Spencer, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. The recommendation is that committee receive my report and approve consent application B26 2021 for Weaver Howard, subject to the following conditions: the payment of any outstanding municipal taxes, payment of the parkland dedication fee for the newly created lot, and finally payment and receipt of an entrance permit for the retained parcel. The lands are designated under the County of Grey official plan as a primary settlement area and hazard area. The municipality's official plan designates the lands as residential, future development, and environmental protection. The lands are zoned as future development, floodline, residential, natural environment, and another residential zone. The purpose and effect of application B26 2021 is to sever 46.5 hectares and retain 28.7 hectares, the effect of which will separate 2 original parcels which merged through registration at the Land Registry Office. The severed parcel will have approximately 798 meters of frontage with an approximate depth of 640 meters. The retained parcel would also have approximately 613 meters of frontage and an approximate depth of 488 meters. The newly created lot line will follow the original township survey between lots 3 and 4. Comments were provided from the County of Grey Planning and Development Department, who have no major concerns with respect to the application. However, they have indicated that they would like to see a 5.18 meter strip of road widening along the western lot line of the subject lands, being Grey Road 10/Jacob Street, to match the existing widening south of the subject lands. An attached survey with a not to scale sketch demonstrates the location of the requested widening. That's been provided from the planner through the County of Grey Planning Department in consultation with the Transportation Department at the county level. Comments were also provided from the Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority, and in general, they find the application acceptable, given the consistency with Section 3.1 of the Natural Hazard Policies of the PPS, Section 2.1, the Natural Heritage Policies of the PPS, and consistency with local planning policy. Comments were also provided by Hydro One, who have no concerns with the application. Comments were also provided by Larry and Merelda Lance regarding this application. They have provided information with respect to the concerns related to future development and any opening of a road allowance along that development when and if those applications of that nature are made. Their comments have been retained on file and certainly have been added and included within the circulation list for this project. Planning staff have no further comments at this point in time and are happy to provide clarification as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Spencer. Okay, so we'll go to 6.4 verbal comments. Again, there's two portions to this. First one will be committee members to speak, and then we'll go to the public. So under 6.4.1, committee members, so this is your chance or opportunity to ask any questions, provide any comments before we turn the application to the public. And I do see Member Townsend, your screen seems to be working this time around. So I will go to you first, and then we'll see if anybody's a follow-up. Member Townsend.
Thank you very much. I noticed that in the application, it notes that there is an easement, hydro easement, on the severed portion, it appears, of the property. And I'm wondering whose responsibility is to ensure the transfer of that. Would it be the property owner, or does the municipality get involved?
Planner Spencer.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, that easement remains on the property in perpetuity. So that easement gives the rights for hydro to have access for that purpose. Easements cannot be built upon. It'll be part of the deed that is approved by the municipality to separate these two parcels back along the original municipal survey. Other than that, there is no application process involved that the municipality needs to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a second question. It has to do with the water and sewer capacity within the area. And I asked because I've already noticed that the property is for sale. It's already listed, and that's the severed portion. And it does notice that it's a future development, and the price tells me it's likely to be a developer that would buy it at that kind of price. So do we know whether there's adequate capacity within the water sewer within that area should development come? And I realize there's some limitation to the answer to that because it depends on how it gets built. But by the same token, I wanted some assurance that there is at least a reasonable expectation of capacity availability prior to moving forward. Thank you.
Planner Spencer.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair, in the absence of an application for that purpose, you're correct that I cannot technically answer what that density component may look like. I will say that there is a review at this point in time of the capacity in Newstat that is ongoing, similar to the review that was conducted for Durham. So without that information in front of me at this point in time, I cannot answer that question concretely, but we are reviewing and ensuring that we have that information available and ready should development proceed. But again, in the absence of an application, I can't really comment on what that would look like in terms of units and capacity for this particular property.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member Townsend. Member Herger, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you. Any change to future development would require a zoning bylaw through you to the planner?
Planner Spencer.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. That is correct. Any change to the zoning and any development of that nature would require a zoning bylaw amendment to move beyond future development, FD zone. Yes.
And that would come back to us for any sort of approval or a site plan agreement as well, right? If there was some sort of new development proposed there, that would come back and we would have an opportunity to place site plan conditions on there.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, it would come back to council, not through committee of adjustment, and it would be more than likely if there's some sort of development proposed, it would be through a plan of subdivision process, which is authorized by the county, but draft plan conditions are recommended at the lower tier level. Typically, site plan control would not be applied in this circumstance because it's anticipated that the development will be much more extensive than typical site plan control policies would permit or permissions we would have under the Planning Act for that purpose. The zoning bylaw amendment application, if necessary, would also come to council, and that would occur through a public meeting process under the Planning Act as well.
Very good. I do have one question about the parkland dedication fee for a newly created lot. It is my understanding that this was separated into two parcels before. could we have a little history on how long that changed, what the necessity would be for parkland dedication fee if we have already had it as two separate individual properties? Looking for the planner's comments on that. Thank you.
Planner Spencer.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. So by virtue of registration, these properties used to be held in two different names, and when they were registered into the same name at the land registry office, they automatically merged. The policy has been by the municipality to collect parkland dedication when lots are separated, and that is allocated and earmarked for the expansion, maintenance, upkeep of parks for the municipality throughout the entire municipality for that purpose. And that is why it's been applied in this case and has been applied in many other cases as a standard condition. It's up the direction of the committee should they wish to do something differently. Thank you.
Might I ask one last question? When would these properties have merged? Is this recent? Is this historical?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. It was through the settlement of an estate for the current property owner. And that's happened in the last, I believe, if I recall correctly, it's in the last 4 years or so.
Thank you.
Anything further, Member Herger?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And is there any other comments or questions from the committee members before we turn the application to the public for discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to 6.4.2. And again, this is the public portion. There's 2 parts to this. The first one is going to be to speak in favor of the application, and then that will be followed by anybody who would like to speak that's opposed or against the application. I'm going to ask Clerk Scharbeck to please advise on how members of the public can participate. And if you could, just advise if you have anybody or you received any correspondence, anybody would like to speak to it, in favor of it first, and then we will follow up with anybody opposed. Clerk Scharbeck, please.
Certainly, through you, Chair Hutchinson. It should be noted for this portion of the meeting, participation must be done through Zoom meeting software and cannot be done through the live stream on YouTube. For members of the public waiting to participate in this portion of the meeting, you may do so in one of 2 ways. First being, if you have joined us via phone line, you can press *9 to raise your hand. That will let us know that you would like to speak. After speaking, or if you raised your hand in error, you can press *9 again to lower your hand. If you've joined us using the Zoom meeting software, you can either send a chat to me, Genevieve, either stating that you would like to speak or that you would like your message read on your behalf for the record, or you can raise your hand, usually located in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen with a blue or yellow hand icon. Chair Hutchinson, I do see one hand up. I believe that is Tammy.
I just wanted to
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. If you could just state your name for the record. I'm not sure if Clerk Scharbeck's may have just froze up there, so I'll jump in. But go ahead, Tammy Grove McClement.
good afternoon. I'm Tammy Grove McClement. I'm actually part of the Ross firm. So I brought this application on behalf of Mr. Weber, who is a client of ours. I just wanted to add that I'm here if anyone has any questions that they would like answered. And I did want to just respond to one of the inquiries that Councillor Herger had with respect to when the properties merged. Properties were in 2 separate names owned by spouses. So one spouse on one, 2 spouses on the other. With the death of the one spouse last year, the properties merged because they were abutting. So those are just my comments. If you have any more questions, I can definitely assist.
Thank you very much. Is there any comments or questions from the committee members now that we have some clarity on that? Okay, seeing none. Clerk Scharbeck, is your screen back to working?
Through you, Chair, yes, it is. I hope you can hear me okay. I don't see anything in the chat messages. And at this time, I don't see anybody with a raised hand indicating they'd like to speak.
Okay, and I'm the same and I see nothing at this end here. Okay, so we are going to move on to 6.5, and this is the decision by the committee. What direction would the committee members like to take with this application? I'd be looking for a mover, and I see a member Hergert's hand up. Go ahead, member Hergert.
Yes, I would like to move that we approve the consent to sever the application. Because of the historical nature of this, I would actually propose my motion to have the parkland dedication fee removed and all other recommendations from the planner to be included and incorporated.
Okay, so I do see member Hutchinson's hand up. I've got that just before your hand came up just when you started, member Hergert, so just go ahead, member Hutchinson.
Well, this can be maybe done later, but I wondered, since we received the report from the previous application, should we also have a motion to receive the report from the Ross Firm Corporation? That's 6.2 actually on our agenda.
Okay, so I'll come back to you, member Hutchinson. We do have it moved by member Hergert, so I'll be looking for a seconder. I wasn't sure if it was a question prior to that, but I will get back to that. So we'll be looking for a seconder, and do you want me to go to the clerk there, member Hergert, so we can have it kind of clearly stated what you're moving?
Sure, just to approve the consent to sever application, B26-2021, Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent for the following reasons and subject to the following conditions. And then it's payment of any outstanding municipal taxes and payment and receipt of an entrance permit for the retained parcel.
Okay. So I'd be looking for a seconder on that motion, or that motion on that recommendation. And I do see member Townsend's hand up. Go ahead, member Townsend.
Yes, I will second that motion.
Okay, Clerk Sarbeck, could you read the recommendation, please?
Yes, through you, Chair. Moved by member Herger and seconded by Councillor Townsend, that Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve consent to sever application B26-2021 Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent for the reasons set out in the planner's report and with the following conditions: payment of any outstanding municipal taxes and payment and receipt of an entrance permit for the retained parcel.
Comments or questions from the committee members? Member Hutchinson, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit worried that if we don't charge the parkland dedication fee, that we might be setting a precedent. And then are we going to have to evaluate every application going forward, whether we charge that or not? Like, it's sort of a standard fee. I'm not sure if there would have been a parkland dedication fee charged to either one of these properties when they first bought them or first severed them, whatever, because it probably goes back quite a few years. So I'm just a little bit concerned that we're setting a precedent, and then are we going to have to evaluate every other application going forward whether we want to charge that fee? Maybe.
Planner Spencer, do you have a comment to that, please?
Yes, thank you. And through you, Mr. Chair. We apply the parkland dedication fee for all consent applications. The only circumstance as a policy where it is not required is if it is a lot addition. So it's a portion of a lot being added to another lot, not necessarily a new lot creation. When a new lot line is being formed, as in this is the case, we would always apply the $500 parkland dedication fee under the Planning Act. And that's a standard practice for most municipalities in the province. Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Spencer. Go ahead, member Hutchinson.
No, that's fine for now. I just wondered what the comments were from staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Townsend, your hand's up. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I did. On the same topic, again to the planner. I believe that when we actually develop the land, assuming that will happen one way or the other, that at that point would there be a park dedication fee, which is when it would be collected or could be collected, rather than at this stage when it's just a severance. Thank you.
Thank you. Planner Spencer.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. If there was an application to come forward to develop the subject lands in the form of a plan of subdivision, absolutely there would be parkland dedication, which will be calculated at the time. Or alternatively, it would be in the form of land or can come in the form of cash in lieu. So that's just at the discretion of council at the time. Should an application come forward, it can be dealt with in that manner at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. That was my only question, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, is everyone clear on the recommendation before us, or would we like Clerk Sharbeck to read it one more time? Thumbs up if you want to hear it again. If we're all good, then I'll call the hear it one more time, Member Hudson. I think I would like to as well. Clerk Sharbeck, if you could, just for clarity, just so I'm clear on what we're voting on here, please.
Through you, Chair, moved by Member Herger and seconded by Member Townsend. The Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve consent to sever application number B26, 2021, Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent for the reasons as set out in the planner's report and with the following conditions. Payment of any outstanding municipal taxes and payment and receipt of an entrance permit for the retained parcel.
Thank you. Okay, we'll call the motion. All those in favor could raise your hand. I see 2 members in favor, and those opposed, if you could raise your hand, please. I see 3 members opposed. The recommendation is not carried.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Member Robinson.
I would move a recommendation to approve the consent to sever application based on the planner's report and subject to the 3 conditions outlined in the report. So that is payment of outstanding municipal taxes, payment of parkland dedication, fee for the newly created lot, and payment and receipt of an entrance permit for the retained parcel.
Okay, so I have a mover. I'll be looking for a seconder on that. Member Herger, are you seconding this motion?
Member Herger, yes.
Okay, so I have that moved by Member Robinson, seconded by Member Herger, and I'm going to go back to Clerk Sharbeck to read the new recommendation before us, and then we'll call that question. Go ahead, please.
Through you, Chair, moved by Member Robinson and seconded by Member Herger. That Committee of Adjustment does hereby approve consent to sever application number B26, 2021 Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent for the reasons as set out in the planner's report and with the conditions as set out in the planner's report.
Thank you, Clerk Sharbeck. Comments or questions from the committee members? Seeing none, we'll call the motion. All those in favor, please raise your hand. I see all 5 members are in favor of this motion. None opposed. This motion is carried. Clerk Sharbeck, if you could read the item 6.6, please. Next steps.
Oh, Mr. Chair?
Oh, yes, go ahead, Member Robinson.
Excuse me, I think it was...
Oh, you're right. I was to go back to Member Hutchinson. I just caught my notes there.
Thank you.
It. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, Member Robinson. And back to you, Member Hutchinson.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to. So item 6.2 has a recommendation that the committee adjustment receives report for application B26, 2021 Howard Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent from Planner Spencer and the recommendations therein. So move a motion to accept that report.
Thank you, Member Hutchinson. I apologize for not catching that. And Member Townsend, are you seconding that motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair, seconding the motion.
Thank you. Over to Clerk Sharbeck, please. If you could read this recommendation before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Moved by Member Hutchinson and seconded by Member Townsend. The Committee of Adjustment receives the report for application B26, 2021 Howard Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation agent from Planner Spencer and the recommendations therein.
Thank you. Comments or questions on this motion? Member Hudson, you have a question?
Just a clarification, how are we designating, I guess when I make a motion that I'm member Hutchison, and you're chair Hutchison, is that how we're designating the difference? I just wanted to clarify.
Well, clerk can answer that, but I won't be making motions from here unless I was to ever transfer the chair to the, but that's how, but I'll let the clerk speak to that.
Yeah. He's muted.
Yeah. Clerk Sharbeck?
I'm sorry, Chair Hutchinson, I missed what you were saying there. My screen was frozen, but I would say that, yes, it's Member Hutchinson is Member Doug Hutchinson, and Chair Hutchinson is Chair Tom Hutchinson. But we do note in the minutes whether it's a D or a T Hutchinson for clarity, as well as for who's attending, just because it can be a little bit confusing which Mr. Hutchinson is speaking.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
You go with that, Member Hutchinson?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay. I believe we did call that vote there. And Member Robinson, I see your mic come off.
I don't believe there was a vote called on it.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are going to call the vote that's before us. So I'm going to get the recommendation read by Clerk Sharbeck. We're going to call that vote, and then we're going to go to, once that's done, we're going to go to 6.6, which is the next steps. Clerk Sharbeck, please go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, the the motion moved by Member Doug Hutchinson and seconded by Member Townsend is that the Committee of Adjustment receives report for application B26-2021 Howard Weber and Ross Firm Professional Corporation Agent from Planner Spencer and the recommendations therein.
Thank you, Clerk Sharbeck. Okay, we have a recommendation before us. All those members in favor, if you could just raise your hand, please. I see 5 members in favor, none opposed. That motion is carried. That will take us to item 6.6, which is next steps. Clerk Sharbeck, please.
Sure, through you, Chair Hutchinson. The next steps is staff will provide notice to the applicant of the decision to approve this application. There is a 20-day appeal period. If no appeals are received, the applicant will be advised of that as well. They have 12 months to complete the conditions approved in the decision sheet.
Thank you, Clerk Sharbeck. Okay, so that takes us to item number 7 on today's agenda, and that is the next meeting. I do see on our calendar the next meeting is scheduled for November the 15th, 2021 at 1 p.m. Clerk Sharbeck, is that, can you confirm that, please?
Yes, Chair, that is correct. November 15th at 1 p.m.
Okay, thank you very much. Item number 8 is the adjournment. We're looking for a motion to adjourn. I see Member Hergert's hand up. Are you making a motion to adjourn?
Member Hergert, yes, move for adjournment.
Thank you. And could I get a seconder, please? Member Hutchinson, are you seconding that motion? Okay, thumbs up. Clerk Sharbeck, if you could please read the recommendation.
Sure, through you, Chair Hutchinson. The recommendation, the motion moved by Member Herger and seconded by Member Doug Hutchinson is that Committee of Adjustment hereby adjourns this meeting at 1:55 p.m.
Thank you. Call the motion. All those in favor, if you could raise your hand. I see 5 members in favor, none opposed. That motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a wonderful afternoon.